Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a new documentary on Netflix, and it's called Dirty Pop, The Boy Band Scam. And this is about Lou Pearlman, who basically invented the American boy band.
Did he?
Well, the modern...
Or capitalized on it.
I don't know. I don't remember prior to like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC.
There was New Kids on the Block.
Jackson Block.
No, there was New Kids on the Block. That was kind of the big boy band.
Forget everything I said. This is not my genre. Okay.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is when I was watching this was that it's interesting because I think we have a very different take than someone who was, 20 years younger than us.
Mm-hmm.
Because
or even 10 years.
Yeah. We were so right. I was 27 or something, or you know what I mean? When these guys hit it big. And I remember when New Kids on the Block came out, I was already like in high school, junior, senior, right? I missed all of that.
Yeah. I missed all of it. All of the boy band.
So I think
the only boy band I know is like the Jackson 5.
And Menudo.
Oh, Menudo, maybe the Osmonds,
Yes, the Osmonds.
Old school. But yeah, this whole 90s, 2000s, early aughts, whatever.
Yeah, this is not
It's out of my wheelhouse. So I didn't know. Obviously I know the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, but these other bands they were talking about.
God, I didn't know any of them. I didn't know any of them. I knew that Natural. I never heard of Natural before in my life.
No.
So what? And they have and you see them in concert, the huge concerts.
I know.
Who are all these people? So
I know. So
I think we're busy. Like, I don't know, what were those years? Having children or?
Well, I graduated from law school in 97.
Mm-hmm.
So I was starting my career, and this was completely out of my wheelhouse. But anyway, you have a
yes, I have a synopsis from Glamour Magazine, UK. So Dirty Pop, the boy band scam. It chronicles the lies and crimes of boy band boss Lou Pearlman, who formed some of its biggest bands of the 90s and the aughts. But he soon discovered to be committing crimes with the finances that the boy bands earned. We're hoping it's going to be a useful and inciting demonstration of what happens when powerful men in the entertainment and music industry abuse said power. So, according to the synopsis of the documentary, a chronicle of the rise and fall of music mogul Lou Pearlman, who created and allegedly exploited some of the top boy bands of the 1990s. This covers Lou's involvement with the huge 1990s boy bands such as Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and O-Town. And about how he also carried this dark secret. And the documentary also has, with never before seen archive and unique access to highlighting the artist's epic rise to global stardom, the series uncovers Pearlman's web of lies, revealing the harsh realities of fame, power, exploitation, and greed. So the better way of saying it is that it's essentially the story of Lou Pearlman, his life. We got a big picture of his life and how he discovered and created Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and the subsequently what happened after, and the discovery of that it was all a Ponzi scheme, and then him going to prison and then his death. That's the best way to succinctly say everything that happened. So tell me, what are your high level thoughts besides the fact that these were not our band, these were not our groups?
Well, he didn't seem to me like your typical scam artist. I don't know. I think a lot of people didn't see him coming. And maybe that's why, he was so successful, because they called it the largest Ponzi scheme in American history.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Like, I think it's worse than Bernie Madoff. But, you look at him and, he's this fat kid who gets made fun of. I think he really kind of had to buy his friends. Like, those cool guys from New York would never be hanging out with him. He wasn't whining and dining them and taking them places. And, he did the same thing with these boys. He took these boys that came from very poor families and were really struggling, and he took care of them. And they were flying first class and staying in nice hotels and eating good food. So it kind of was like, okay, I'm not getting paid right now. And then when they did get paid, it wasn't very much, but they were still, having a good time, and, going around the world and doing all this stuff. And that continued, I feel like, his whole life. He kept this, what he spent this Ponzi scheme money on was keeping up this lifestyle of being able to entertain people and buy friendships and buy access. And you look at him and he just looks kind of like this, like, oh, Mr. Nice Guy,
Really? God, I thought he was I'm sorry, Lou Pearlman, but I kind of felt like he was like child molester central casting. I mean, I kind of feel like
waiting.
That's who I would cast him as the child molester. So
but he wasn't.
Yes.
I mean, I'm saying at least nobody's ever come out and said that. But yeah, it's like we kept waiting for that. Okay, when's the child molestation going to come out in this movie? And it never did. He kind of made a few inappropriate comments, but that was about as far as it went. And so if he's not doing that kind of stuff, you kind of look at him like, are you just the biggest dork? Like,
meaning,
ever?
Why couldn't you get friends on your own without whining and dining people?
Right. And he had no girlfriends. We don't know. His sexuality was questionable. He declared this one woman who was a nurse who took care of him afshe had a
that whole thing is so weird.
He declared that was his girlfriend. He just started calling her his girlfriend. And she said, oh, I tried to kiss him once, but I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, no spark. No, nothing.
So I don't know. He's just such an odd person.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he was this kid that was poor and overweight and wasn't happening. And I think this is my belief is I think that he was very unsure about his sexuality. I don't think he was asexual. I think that he struggled with his sexuality and therefore I think became asexual. And that's just my opinion.
Because he didn't want to act on it. I felt he couldn't act on it.
Yes. And I think that maybe in the household there was maybe a lot of shame around being something different than being straight, right? That there was, that he felt that. And I think that he figured out very quickly that if I have money, I will have power. And if I have power, I have the power to insulate myself so much that no one can hurt me. No one can get to me. And that's, being fat is a little bit like that. Like that, it keeps you protected. It keeps people away. And even though you want people to come close, at the same time, you're struggling with, this duality between these two things, So yeah. I think that I think a lot of this is about control. We also covered the Bernie Madoff, I think also Netflix documentary about a year ago. And there's a lot of similarities. Like, this is Ponzi scheme 101, like what you do, how it works. And
forging documents.
Yes, forging documents. And also what we saw with Bernie Madoff that we also saw in this documentary is you keep things separate, right? There's a group of people that know what you're doing because you can't do it alone. So there's always a couple people that are in the inner circle that are in it and know what's going on with you. And you keep those people very, very close. And then there's all the other people who have no idea what's going on. And that was very similar with Bernie Madoff, these two camps.
Yeah. And he started out, he got his seed money for all of this he had this fascination with blimps, which are the most bizarre things in the world. Blimps. Who thought of this idea? It's so weird. But anyway, with the help of some Nazi guy in Germany.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to start with that? I mean, that was just insane.
How did you meet that guy?
Yeah. And they don't really get into that. They don't really, that's the whole thing is he creates this Airship International in 1983. And basically it's about him renting out blimps for companies. And the backer was this West German guy. I can't even pronounce his name. And yeah, I mean, basically it was, I guess this guy in Germany was apparently a known Nazi. And Lou Pearlman, who was Jewish, that tells you something right there that he was willing to take money from him.
He somehow, got him to invest in these blimps, and then he had them all insured, and then slowly they all started crashing.
Yes. Yes.
And so he was able to collect all this insurance money for these blimps, and that was how he got his start. And then he started, financing his lavish lifestyle to look like he was this big time investor, financial person. And then everyone, friends, family, whoever he could con into giving him money, started giving him, their life savings.
Yeah. So he had this the company was Transcontinental. Transcontinental was everything. It was the airplanes and the blimps and all of that in under one heading. But he had this thing called the Employment Investment Savings Account, EISA. And just like with what Bernie Madoff did, is it offers higher returns than the banks. And he was a master forger. I love that friend of his, what's his name? Jerry Rosen, who was like, oh, well, he
was a real apologist.
Yeah, he was slime. I'm sorry. He basically was like, was it forgery or was it embellishment? It's like, no, it's a lie. You're lying. So just...
It's fraud.
It's fraud. Thank you.
Jerry.
Yeah, it's fraud. But he had this investment savings account that not only employees could invest in, but also people from the outside could invest in. And it gives higher rates. And so he went to friends, and just like what Madoff did, he went to friends and family and, just had no qualms with taking all their money and obviously spending it on other things. There was no funds, or it wasn't going anywhere.
He stole like $300 million.
I think they totaled it 500.
That's right. It was 300 through the employee investment fund thing, and then another 200 for some other con he had going. But he also used the money to, to get these boy bands started and to pay for, like I was saying, for them to travel first class and, really suck them in,
Well, it's interesting because he starts to talk about how, so first it was the blimps, and then it was this whole thing about he was leasing airplanes to rock stars. And he said because this is one thing that the documentary does is I guess this is AI, right? Where they take the audio version of the book he wrote, Bands, Brands, and Billions, and cut that over a picture of Lou talking.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Because I don't think it was, because that was his book. And then I think he had some promotional videos that he did where he talked about other things. And I think they inserted those in as a way. And I thought that was kind of odd. I think I could have just heard the book.
We could just hear the
I don't
voice.
need to see him. He's not that attractive. It's like, oh, I don't need to see him, the words come out of his mouth to believe that he really said these things.
Yeah, I thought he had filmed himself like an audiobook. Like I
no.
himself reading his book.
No.
I don't know. I missed. I saw they put something up on the screen that said, this is his voice and it's been synced with this video, but I didn't quite understand what that meant.
Well, and so his story is that he was leasing airplanes and he saw New Kids on the Block 1990 and wondering, like, how did these kids afford to lease a plane? And that gave him the idea that, hey, you know, there's a lot. Oh, wow. You know, these guys are young and they're already making money. Can't I do this too? Wouldn't this be good? And I think that whether he was aware of it or not, I think that I think it got him closer to celebrity, closer to, maybe closer to people that he wanted to be close to. Like, I wonder how conscious he was of what was going on when he made this choice to go in this direction. That's what my question.
Yeah. I don't know if it was conscious or not, but it was definitely, like, they talked about this, about how he used the boy bands to gain access to other famous people.
Yes.
Because they were the it things at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they talked about how wherever they went, they'd always have to sing, like on command. You know, he'd be like, "Oh, hey, come meet this person," and, you know, sing for them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's using them, you know, to get in good with other people, because everyone's like, "Oh, it's in sync," you know. And that was creepy.
Yeah, it was.
You know, because they were kind of being used like
perform, man.
Perform, you know, like performance, you know, dolls or something.
Well, you could see there in some of the clips where they were like, for the longest time, right? You could see a lot of resentment in some of the faces of like, I can't sing this stupid song again. Yeah. So nothing, no, I'm not saying you're stupid, Billy Joel, but it just became over and over again. But one thing I thought that he did that I thought was really, really smart was, so it started with the Backstreet Boys in 1993. And we learned all about how the Backstreet Boys were formed. And NSYNC's very similar, where it's like one person starts, much like the Housewives, right? They start with one person and then they're like, who do you know?
They find some friends.
Friends. Like, who do you know between these ages that can come in and do this? And but what he had Backstreet Boys do is they went to schools. And I thought that was really smart. And I was like, what are these schools where they're just kind of letting bands come in? But they played a lot of high schools. And I mean, obviously they were there. There were some that were, weren't so into it. But I think that I was like, God, that's really, this was before social media. This was before a lot of stuff. So it's like, yeah, how do you reach these young people? Because this is what you're looking for. Are these primarily young women?
That's where they all are. They're in high school.
So I thought that was pretty smart. But at the time, that if you look back at 1993, which I remember, I was in college then, right? The music, what was on the radio was all the grunge, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, all of that, or Dre, Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of, once by then New Kids on the Block had kind of gotten old, petered out. And because of the fact that we had moved into this this like grunge, this grunge era.
I think that's why Justin Bieber was so popular, because it was the same kind of thing. He came along at a time where, all these rappers talking about, doing disgusting things to women. And then here comes Justin Bieber singing love songs.
Interesting. When did Justin Bieber come about? Like, when was he first?
Well, he's been doing this since he's like 11 or something, or maybe younger. And
So 2004?
Is he 30? He's 30-ish. So, yeah, he's after these people, obviously, but it's the same kind of thing. It's a contrast to what's out there.
Yes. So it was smart. And so, we see all these scenes about, the forming of Backstreet Boys and getting their start, and the fact that they all would call him Big Papa, and he had this reputation of being like this all-encompassing big personality, Big Papa, the fifth Backstreet Boy, the sixth Backstreet Boy, the sixth, NSYNCer or whatever it is. But that's not, they talked a lot about how they were living in this kind of strange world, what you're saying, which is they were working really, really hard, but they weren't getting any actual dollars from him.
Money, yeah.
What they were getting was housing and flying and doing this and doing that. But the thing is that, when you're starting out, you're not going to fly these people private everywhere. You're not going to do that.
You take a bus.
Yeah, you put them on a tour bus and you throw them out there. And so that was the other part too that seems so, I think, why the Ponzi scheme worked well, which is that I think that it was a little bit of that, well, don't notice what I'm doing over here because I'm going to be real flashy over here. But underneath all of this, then you won't notice that I'm not giving you dime one for all this hard work.
And the first, he finally gave them some money. I'm not quite sure how much time had elapsed before they actually got a check. And the check, they each got like $10,000 for like 2 years of work, of all this traveling around, working night and day. And
selling millions of albums.
Yeah. And making millions of dollars in record sales and all the rest of it. And shortly thereafter, they started going, wait a minute, and then curiously, they sued him. I don't know if they sued him together or separately. Backstreet Boys sued him. And guess who Lou hired as his attorney?
Yes. This was hands down. He said,
like, what?
No. But I want to say something because he said hands down the best line of the entire thing, which Brooke, I think you would be very proud of, right? Hold on. I got 15 pages of notes. Okay, here we go. His name's
Cheney Mason.
Cheney Mason. And he had the line of episode 3 for sure. You should have paid me, you asshole. You should put that on a business card.
Right.
Pay me or I'm going to fuck up your life. because really it was Cheney that really started this.
Yeah. He started getting people looking at this guy.
But this Cheney,
Yeah. So this Cheney Mason, he was one of Casey Anthony's lawyers, and he is the one who took her into his home after she was acquitted and she was a pariah and she had nowhere to go. And she started working with him, and the documentary about that whole thing we covered, like, I think was one of the first 10 or 15 shows we ever did.
And we actually believe we thought we liked her. I don't know. We kind of believed her. I was just like, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
But people, we got our first hate letters.
Oh, yes.
I wonder if you're still listening. Hello, are you out there? Because you really hated us 2 years ago.
Yeah. If you're still listening, thanks. Yes.
Good to hear from you.
Yeah. But, he believed her. He believed in her.
He did. He
did every other single person on her defense team. To take someone into your home and basically become like a father figure to her and take care of her, give her a job. Anyway.
Yeah. That's what really kind of hit me with the Casey Anthony thing, because listen, Robert Shapiro wasn't letting OJ into his house. He wasn't those guys separated themselves from OJ as quickly. Robert Kardashian, his childhood friend, was like, peace out, get away from me. He's known forever. So the fact that she was accepted by these people, I still feel like, anyway, that's a different story. Yeah, but Cheney's a big time lawyer in Florida.
Yeah. So, he defended him. And what ended up happening was they came to a settlement agreement where the Backstreet Boys basically paid Lou, bought him out, which I don't really quite understand. I guess it must have been in the contracts. He must have had these contracts with them that were so, one-sided that this was a good deal, which tells you how bad these contracts were, because they had to pay Lou $64 million. In order to get out of these contracts, so they could take their money, they could go off and make their own music, but he still got royalties from the music that they did with him. So that was considered a good deal. And this Cheney Mason took it on a contingency basis and took all the risk and, put up all the money for the case. And so he was owed $16 million. Yeah. And
he wanted it.
He did. And he wasn't going to stop till he got it. Yeah. And I think Lou first paid him about $1 million.
Because for that kind of case, don't you have to pay at least in these civil cases, right? Their fees, court fees. Who pays these court fees?
Well, the only court fees that are involved are fees for, filing fees, court reporter fees, expert witness fees, if you go to trial. And that's up to each party. I mean, each party's responsible for their own fees. This was a deal between attorney and client of how he's going to get paid, because he didn't want to pay him by the hour.
Yes, I understand that. But I'm wondering, I assume like those set fees, like that are concrete, not with the deal. Do clients normally pay those up front? Like, hey, okay, I think all these fees are going to cost you this amount. Or did Cheney pay for these expert witnesses with the idea of, okay, I'll get my money back when I get my $16 million?
Well, that's part of the attorney-client agreement.
Okay,
so
got it.
You can agree one way or the other. But I think this case, it sounded like it settled fairly quickly. I don't think, because I don't think Lou wanted the bad publicity.
No, he couldn't have it.
Get rid of it quickly and move on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so he does that, but we learn later on, and I feel like we didn't spend enough time on this, is we learn later on that that for him to get the record deal from BMG, to get that record deal for the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, he basically had to give away all of his rights, right? His deal with BMG wasn't very good. And that's the other thing too. So he sold it. They said Lou sold his soul to BMG. All the money Lou was getting was nothing. All of that. He took this horrible deal with BMG because he knew he had to get these guys a record deal, and he wanted to be looked as a successful businessman. And really, truly, I think that his bread and butter was that employment investment account. I think that was that was it. And it was all about, just like Madoff, signing new people, bringing their money in.
And I think he also wanted to keep that persona.
Yes.
So he could remain, whatever deal he made, he was able to remain in that orbit.
Yes.
In their lives.
So people see, and I understand that, right? With Madoff, people see him with tons of money and doing all this stuff. We see, so Lou wanted people to, right, in order to get investments from people, he had to look successful. And it kind of, have you read anything about that couple in the Hamptons where the husband committed suicide? It's been in the papers. This like very it couple in New York. They had a house they had a apartment in Tribeca, and they had a Montauk house, and the wife had a very successful Instagram page called like Mama and Tata, and she had about 80,000 followers, but it was really, she talked about her lifestyle and going here and going there. But the two of them had like this insane lifestyle. And apparently the husband committed suicide about a month and a half ago because
of finances,
because they have no money now. Like,
this sounds familiar. Yeah.
And it's like that same thing, because she was posting all the time, like going to private, the cost of her gym was $900 a month. There was $250
going to Italy and staying at all the finest places.
Yes. Huge Montauk parties, doing this, doing that. But that's the thing. I think we're learning all of these documentaries are teaching us, you got to get someone's bank statement. Yeah. Not even that, actually. They can forge that. You got to call the FDIC or something. I don't know.
And that's what this guy was doing. Like, he would make different bank statements. If he wanted to look wealthy, he would make one kind of bank statement. If he wanted to look poor, he would make another. That's how he ultimately got caught.
This sounds like someone we know, but I won't name them.
Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Hey there, it's Tess Brigham, the therapist half of Psych Legal Pop. In addition to being a therapist, I'm also a coach, speaker, and author. And if you go to my website, you'll find courses, ebooks, and worksheets for sale. If you're feeling a bit lost, overwhelmed by life's twists and turns, or you're just simply stuck, I've got you covered. Head over to my website, www.tessbrigham.com, for courses, ebooks, and worksheets tailored to help you unlock your true potential. From relationship struggles to career transitions, I'm here to guide you every step of the way. So stop looking outside of yourself at friends, family, social media for the answers. The answers to all your questions are inside of you. My products and services are the first step in uncovering your true you.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's be completely honest. Are you happy with your job? The fact is, a huge number of people can't say yes to that. Too many of us are stuck in a job we've outgrown or one we never really wanted in the first place. But we stick it out and we give reasons like, what if the next move is worse? And I've put years into this place. And maybe the most common one, isn't everyone miserable at work? But there's a difference between reasons for staying and excuses for not leaving. It's time to get unstuck. It's time for strawberry.me. They match you with a certified career coach who helps you get from where you are to where you want to be, either at your existing job or by helping you find a new one. Your coach helps clarify your goals, creates a plan, and keeps you accountable along the way. Go to strawberry.me/career and get 50% off your first coaching session. That's strawberry.me/career.
About making bank statements?
Well, someone who says some statements say I'm poor, some statements say I'm rich.
Well, I'm not sure who you're referring to, but
okay.
Sorry, it's going over my head. Are you talking about Bernie Madoff?
No. This is the quote we've seen with Michael Cohen about Trump.
Oh, Trump. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't want to offend anybody, but I mean, this is that's the thing that's shown over and over again.
Well, he was actually convicted of that.
Yes, I know. What? I know.
So it's not like you're disparaging.
Okay.
It's not like you're saying anything this has been proven in court of law.
Yes.
So don't worry about that.
But this is kind of how it works. If anyone out there wants to this is kind of how it works, right? I feel so dumb. I am such an idiot. You know what I do? I go to my job. I know, but I go to my job every day. I work and I pay my taxes and then I just keep moving along. And it's just, you know what it is? It's that mentality. Wealthy people, they really, I think very early on, they're indoctrinated with this. You got to make your money work for you. And I just wish our parents had more of those talks with us.
Well, but Tessie, but none of this. I mean, there's a lot of people who make a lot of money who are very honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like this is a small percentage of people who do stuff like this, but people do it. Look at Teresa Giudice went to prison and, her husband, I don't know how much she knew about it, but, there's people who do this kind of stuff, but
I'm not saying that
I don't think it's most wealthy people.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that all wealthy people are like this. What I'm saying is that I guess it's just what's so interesting to me when we hear these documentaries, and you think about someone like Lou Pearlman, who, was this kid that lived in an apartment in New York or Brooklyn, in New York and Queens, yeah. And he, I'm going to start a blimp company and going out and getting investors to invest in this blimp company and all of that, just to be able to do all of that. I guess I just never thought in such big terms when I was that young. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's just of making my money work for me or getting investors to pay for things or any of that kind of stuff. That's all.
Okay.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
Where were we?
I don't know. So he sold his soul to the devil to look like he was more together than he was. Now, I will say one thing I realized and discovered was you remember that NSYNC song Bye Bye Bye? I had no idea it was all about Lou Pearlman.
I didn't either. So, until you just said it. I didn't even
because they have that video. The video's right, with them, like they're
they're like a
puppets.
puppet.
Yeah. And I remember they did that, like, I think for the Grammys or something, music video awards. And it was a video. And I remember when that song came out and I didn't know that. And then I was like, oh, interesting timing. Okay. Yeah. This is about Lou Pearlman. I get it now. I didn't realize that NSYNC was so short-lived with Lou Pearlman. Like
they've had more success after Lou Pearlman than before. And they're still like, they got the band back together and they're touring, and all these boy bands are touring again.
Yeah. Because all of their fans have money to spend and want to go, And that really surprised me. How many, like, they were still filling huge theaters. Okay.
Yeah. So he went on and, he lost them, but he went on, like, I remember hearing about the show Making the Band.
Yes.
But I never heard of O-Town. I didn't know that was the band. I didn't know of any of these people.
Yeah, I knew this.
Except for Aaron Carter.
Yes.
His brother was in.
And that's another question too. So by this time where he's working with Aaron Carter, Nick Carter has already sued Lou because he's a shyster. So why are we letting Aaron Carter get in business with this guy?
Well, they had a very dysfunctional family.
Yes. Well, you know who Brooke...
drug use and the mother, and it was not...
But you know who Brooke Hogan is? Yeah,
that's Hulk Hogan's daughter.
So I knew LFO, which is that they sing that Abercrombie and Fitch song. But the people that we met the most were these guys from Natural. And I was like, I'd never heard of Natural in my life. Never heard of it.
Neither.
But, and it just, he kept going and kept producing. And then from there, and that's kind of like, everything happened really, really fast. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because I didn't realize everything happened this fast, that Backstreet Boys, I think they worked with Pearlman the longest, right? And they hit it. And then NSYNC hit it pretty, I think, semi-quickly after that. And then by 2000, they've all left. And then he gets caught in 2006, 2007. So there's only this small period of time where he's like going out with the boy bands and doing all this stuff and producing all these other acts.
I can't remember let's see. He died in 2016.
Yes, but he was arrested 2007.
2006, yeah.
2006. I have 2007, but okay. Yeah, maybe it is. Okay. Anywho, well, one of the big themes that I wanted to talk about was this duality that they interviewed a couple members from Backstreet Boys. They interviewed Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. We got these guys, Michael Johnson from Natural and another guy from Natural. And so we're meeting all these guys that were, one guy from O-Town. And it was interesting sort of to hear their takes on everything, because usually in these kinds of documentaries, people are on one side or another. Like this, either they're defending that person or they're like, this person's a monster. And what we saw a lot of, and even some of his employees and the woman that's his girlfriend, right? His personal assistant still was defending him. That nurse was still defending Lou. I mean, one of his childhood friends who seemed a little shady, still defending him. And so it was really interesting to hear from these guys, especially now that they're, in their 30s, 40s, much older, of what it was like for them. And the fact that for some of them, they were like, he was my second father. I had no father.
Yeah, he was very nice to people. He was not a mean, shyster. He was kind to people. He helped them. So they had a lot of conflicting feelings about him.
Yeah. And I think that's, Lou it seemed to me that he was the master of showing up in whatever way you needed him to be in order for you to love him. Kind of a chameleon, which is very common for these kinds of personalities. And it was just interesting of whatever role he needed to play. And so he kind of figured out like, oh, these kids need me to be a father figure. These guys need me to be this. This guy needs me to be like a friend. This guy, and
Well, and like the woman who he basically met at TCBY Yogurt.
yes, she still was
just a
conflicted.
kid.
Yeah.
And then he put her to work and she worked for him, up until the end.
Mhm.
Yeah. And she wasn't saying bad things about him at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think
She kind of got a little choked up,
Yeah.
But-
Well, the personal assistant was ready to lay down and die for him. I mean, she really was in it. But I guess, and that's the part that I can really feel for and understand for these guys, because it's really hard when something happens in your life like that you look back on a time in your life that you're really fond of, and something happens that changes all of that. Does that make sense? Like just, I thought that was the best summer of my life, but really what was happening was X, Y, and Z behind the scenes, and I didn't know. And so then that clouds it for you. The summer isn't so great anymore. And I get the sense that that's kind of how they all feel, that they felt like they were part of something special and unique and felt so lucky to be chosen and to be one of the lucky ones to get to where they are. And a lot of them, they talked about Chris Kirkpatrick, talked about he was from small farming town in Ohio, single mom, 5 kids. He was desperate for a father. He was, a lot of these, Kevin Richardson, he talked about how his father died of cancer. And so Lou filled that role. So I don't know. I thought that was sort of the overarching kind of question or theme of this, was just this, duality of people, because people are complicated.
Yeah, and his childhood friends who continue to stick up for him. Although one of the saddest parts of this is, so he had this friend Frankie.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes.
Who was one of his childhood friends and very loyal. And Frankie convinced his mother to invest in this fake, employee savings account thing, whatever. And when Frankie basically found out that was a scam and his mom had lost all of her savings, he felt so awful about it. He committed suicide.
Yeah, but then there was this other thing that maybe it could have been murder.
Well, I think, that one guy, that shady friend who's always trying to defend the shadiness.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Jerry Rosen. I think that was
Andy or
Jerry Rosen.
Know.
I had to go back and look up his name several times. I'm like, who's this guy again?
Okay. The skinny guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
the one who couldn't visit Pearlman in prison because he had his own issues.
Right.
Hence, he was a convicted felon.
Right. And they were trying to ask him, well, what do you know about this murder thing? And he's like, I can't talk about it.
So you think that because there was this, in the first episode, they sprinkled in this, like, there's mob ties. And it was like, okay, well, this will come back around. Never came back around. No. So were there no mob ties? I mean, he had sort of an interest in the mob, because when they started uncovering the Ponzi scheme, they realized that he had like this fake CPA accounting firm called Cohen and Siegel, which was, what is it? Bugsy Siegel. And who's the Cohen?
2 mobster gangsters.
Yeah. So I think that so now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if all of these guys are not as connected as they tell us to be, that they're just kind of like friends of his and then are kind of worship these mobster types,
Yeah. They think they're cool because they're running in these circles and going here and going there. But
yeah,
ultimately,
well,
no.
Do you have anything more to say about the duality of people?
Not really.
Okay.
Summed that up.
Well, let's talk a little bit. We've been talking about the Ponzi scheme, but I thought how he got caught was really interesting, because, apparently before all of this, well, I'll get to that in a second. So it really started with this woman It was a couple. It was there seemed to be, again, two women who, along with Cheney, decided, that kind of took him down. So there was one woman, her name was Helen Huntley, and she was a financial reporter. And I guess she had this financial, like maybe newsletter where she was writing about what was happening financially. And I guess she wrote a bit about Lou Pearlman and the lawsuits and what was going on in the press. And is that the person that Cheney goes to?
If you saw one of those women, because he's trying to collect his attorney's fees. And as part of that effort, so he sued Pearlman.
Okay, now I know.
And as part of that, Pearlman produced some fake bank statements saying he only had like $12,000 in assets. And then he saw that this woman was writing about him, Pearlman, and so he contacted her, I believe. And there was also someone who worked in the FBI who was also had been on to him for a couple years, but couldn't really find anything to make it stick. And somehow these guys all came together.
Yes. And I think the other part of it too was, so he turned 50 in 2004. And I think the other problem that was happening was he had lost these big acts. The acts that he had now weren't going very well. Frankie had been gone. Frankie was committed, died. And I think it's Frankie's death that really set off a lot of this. It set off a lot of panic. Because what was happening is around this time, people started asking for their money back from this EISA. And
because people are talking, these people all know each other.
Yeah.
So the people find out Frankie's mom, lost all this money. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Where's my money?
So Helen Huntley was writing about Lou a lot because she knew a lot of people were asking for their money back. And I think she wanted to promote that. And and that's, of course, the downfall of all Ponzi schemes. If that hadn't happened, then, I think it would have happened when with Madoff, like around the time with Madoff with the housing crisis. Like there's at some point, there's going to be some sort of crisis or some sort of tipping point where people are going to want their money back. And there's just no way you can get more people.
Yeah. It always ends at some point. Something happens where, one person asks for their money, then 2, then 5, then 20, and then it just all comes down.
So the FBI raids his offices. He goes on the run. And what they find out is Transcontinental Airlines was never really an airline. There was really...
Yeah, there were no planes.
No planes. It was a
it was
picture.
A fake picture.
It was a picture of a plane, a toy plane, I think on a toy tarmac thing that he was holding and took a picture of. And then he just showed it to people.
Yeah.
And so that was, again, part of the investment scam. It was like, see me. So he needed I think the blimp stuff and the planes. Okay, he's a legitimate businessman. And then, you have all these stars around you. Okay, great. And then all this together means you're good with money. So I'm going to invest.
Yeah, he's living this lavish lifestyle. He has this huge home on the water in Florida. He looks like he's rich.
Yeah, very.
Looks very rich.
Yeah, and I'm sure he was always the one that picked up the check. I'm sure he was always the one that was doing that kind of stuff. And because he was a master forger, he forged all of these things that their money, it said that their money was insured by FDIC and Lloyd's of London.
Yeah, that it was further insured by Lloyd's of London.
And that also should be a little bit of a Do you know what I mean?
Well, see, most people don't even know. They've heard of Lloyd's of London, but they don't really know what it is or what it does. And they just go, Lloyd's of London.
Yeah. So he goes on the run, but this guy, Michael Johnson from Natural. He thought they were taking a trip. He thought they were taking a business trip together.
Yeah, he said they were now business partners. I didn't really understand doing what.
I think that Michael was probably saying to him, well, I want to get into the other side. Let's go scout talent. Let's go find bands. Let's put bands together. Let's do this. Let's do that. So I think it was more of that. And apparently they fly off and then the FBI raids, and he was like, apparently his bank account was frozen. So Michael was putting everything on credit cards, but had no idea that that's why, was that the FBI raided his house. And finally, someone spotted Lou in Bali, took a picture of him, sent it to the FBI, and they were like, oh yeah, that's him. So we'll go get him. Here we go. And that was Scott. You know what it was? It was that Scott Skinner guy that from the FBI that Cheney either contacted her or Helen. I'm trying to go back. This is what happens with these things with so many notes.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah.
He was the head person on this investigation.
Yeah, of course his like gangster friends, his little gangster friends, like all hated Cheney and Scott Skinner because, you know, he's FBI.
Because that was the end of that was the end of their it's the end of their run too. You know, they don't have a sugar daddy anymore.
Yes, that is very, very that is very, very true.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then when they you know, they arrest him, they bring him back to the U.S. and he just pled guilty. Like he didn't even really try to defend himself. I probably realized he couldn't. He has no money. And so he pleads guilty. He's sentenced to 25 years, which I thought was appropriate. And of course, his friends are saying,
Jerry,
people who don't even get 25 years for murder. And it's like, well, what state do you live in? Because in California, you get convicted of murder, they put you in prison and throw away the key.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Well, the other thing too is, and this is something that really bugs me, and I think this is one of the things that's wrong with our system, is in the system, which is we see these kinds of people as this is a white collar crime, right? Like there was no violence involved. No one physically was harmed, but when you commit these kinds of things, he harmed more people than a serial killer. Do you know what I mean? It's like you
ruined people's lives.
You ruined people's lives. And that's what bugs me about how we tend to take this attitude of this Wall Street guy over here is much better than this gangbanger over here. And it's like, no, you aren't.
No, it's theft. It's theft. It's no.
The gangbanger is really probably just trying to survive also. Would be but
what's the difference if you like put a gun to someone's head and say, give me all your money, or you trick them into giving it to you?
Yes.
You know what? Just because you don't use a gun. I mean, I know there's a legal distinction, but really, ultimately, if you lose your life savings, you lose your life savings no matter how you lose it. It's gone.
Yes.
And people are worried, well, how am I going to live? What am I going to live on? That's all I had. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that couple, that one couple where she just said, if I fell asleep tonight and didn't wake up, I'd be happy. It's like, oh my God. I mean, awful. But the judge I thought this was kind of interesting. The judge gave him this, I will give you a 1 month reduction on your sentence for every $1 million you pay back. And I think that was the giant question mark around whether or not Lou had a bunch of money hidden somewhere. Because I take it that this is why this judge did this, which I thought was smart, which is, listen, you can get out of here. You know, people just want their money back. So if you have a giant pile of $20 million, can we get this?
Well, at the end, it did say that they recovered like 10 point something million from whatever assets he had that they were able to sell. So, I mean, that's something, I guess, but nowhere near 300. Nowhere near 500.
500.
Yeah, 500 million. Yeah. That's a drop in the bucket.
Well, the other thing too is that, so we do also learn that 3 years before that raid, so it's 2004, Assistant State Attorney General Jackie Dowd had been on his trail, that she had gotten 2,000 complaints from consumers about a modeling company that he set up. And so apparently we see there where he kind of just kept creating businesses and businesses and businesses, which I don't know if they were all Ponzi schemes or ways to feed into it, but I think it's a lot of promises of things that aren't real. And so she was going to file this huge consumer fraud case. And then it was shut down, and then she was let go. And Attorney General, is it Christ?
Oh, Charlie Crist.
Yeah, he got the suit thrown out. And so it came out that like he and Lou were very, very tight. So,
well, yeah, they showed that picture of Charlie Crist, who was the Attorney General And then I know he ran for governor. I can't remember if he ever won or not. But there's this picture with him and Jeb Bush and someone else, maybe even George Bush. And then it ties back to, remember the story about how they were he was promoting some concert for the Jackson 5.
Yes.
The Jackson brothers, because Michael Jackson was on trial for child molestation.
Was this the first trial? This was the first trial. This was after.
This is 2001. So I don't know if this
keep
first.
talking. I'm going to look up what trial.
So he's trying to deflect from that, and somehow he gets advice from Lou Pearlman. He's like, "You need to do this family concert, you and your brothers, in New York City, and where it's going to be great." And so they do the concert, and then the next day is 9/11.
Yes.
So they're in New York, and he's trying to get back to Florida, but all planes are grounded. Somehow, a private plane shows up at the airport, sent by George W. Bush, accompanied by 2 F-16 fighter planes.
Who's paying for all of this?
Yes, back to Florida. So, hello, like, how, in addition to all this other stuff, apparently he's quite well connected. The behind the scenes, they don't really go into that too much.
Yeah. Okay, so the first time Jackson was in court, well, the second time we know this, he had a trial in 2005. So this was the first court case that happened, because the second one was 2005. But yeah, that was really interesting to see that he was like, he claimed that he was advising the Jacksons. I bet you anything, he just picked up the phone and was like, "Hello? Can I talk to somebody?"
Yeah. Have you heard of the Backstreet Boys? I put them on the map. Yeah. I can help you with your image.
Yeah, but it's a little bit like he acted like that he created some great marketing idea. It's like, yeah, I think any PR person or marketing person would be able to come up with the idea that, why don't you get back to the basics and go back with your family? And so there's lots of people insulating you, and it seems wholesome. You know? Anyway, but I have to talk about my hands down favorite character of this entire 3 episodes. His name was Peter Zaccagnino. And, he knew Lou in the real world and in prison. So he's in prison one day and he sees that Lou got arrested and is going to come to prison too. So all of a sudden he's at the chow hall and he looks over and there's his friend Lou in line with handcuffs, coming in. He's like, hey, we're here together. And he just proudly talks about, this guy Peter talks about, well, I was arrested for RICO, mail fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy. Like, it's like,
and he's out now.
But he lists he's listing these things off. Like, he's like, I need tomatoes and bananas and bread. I mean, like
grocery list.
Yeah. So he was very excited to see them, and they were just such pals. Best friends in prison. I mean, the way that the way this guy talked about it was almost like he saw him at the country club, or he saw him, it's like seeing. He
said he ran out of the chow line. Yeah. And it's like, normally if you did that, you'd get attacked by a guard or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it was a medium.
This federal prison.
Medium federal prison.
Security. Yeah.
So is it true? Maybe, I don't know if you know this or not, that federal prisons tend to be worse than these state prisons?
I don't know, because I've also heard they're better, because it's like, they call that the place like where Martha Stewart went, they call it Camp Cupcake or something.
But that's like a low minimum security, right? Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
He went to a medium security.
That's where the financial people go.
Yeah. Okay.
Like Martha Stewart, she was convicted for financial thing. So they put those people in those low security places that, I mean, look, no prison or jail is
it all sucks.
A nice place to be. But, relatively speaking, there some places are better than others.
Yeah. So anyway, and then we hear from Michael Johnson, who kind of kept in touch with Lou. See, that was that duality thing of like, even after he was arrested, even after all this, it was a little bit of like, oh gosh. And so he tells this story about, he talked to Lou in prison, and Lou would talk like it just like all these other sociopaths that we've been following. Like, oh, no problem. I'm in here, but plans something I'm going to do in the future and we'll see each other again. But apparently Lou, not very smart. He was going around trying to rat people out for things that he saw them do or did or reported to get deals. And then he would get beat up for doing that.
Lou.
It was just a little bit like, what are you doing? It was so weird.
He didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
He's a stranger in a strange land and they're in prison. He's just trying to figure it out.
But you get beat up once, right? Like, you kind of learn your lesson. So,
or maybe he's tried it a little differently the next time.
Oh, he's like, well, okay.
This time I'm going to do it this way. See if this works.
Uh-oh. I'm getting stabbed. I'm getting beaten up again. Uh-oh.
Happening again.
Okay. But I mean, come on, Lou. Anyone, you don't have to be that street smart to know that, like, people don't rat on people. I mean, like, that's the most basic code of anything. So,
yeah.
But he did say that Michael talked about how Lou took no accountability, no apologies, no accountability, nothing, much like Bernie Madoff, much like any of these other guys. So
Trump.
Yeah. So those were all of my thoughts and feelings. Do you have anything else?
No, I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
He ended up dying in prison after he had to have a surgery he had an infection in his heart or something.
Yeah.
He ended up passing away from that.
I'm amazed he lived as long as he did. I'll be really honest, because he was arrested right when he was about 53, because I think they said he celebrated his 53rd birthday in prison. And, he lived another, 10 years? Something like that. Yeah. And that's really surprising because he was not a healthy person before he got into prison. And prison is not a healthy place. Like, I think you get health care, but I don't think it's, it's not great conditions. You're inside a lot, right? Like, not a lot of vitamin D. The food isn't very nutritious. I mean, there's a lot of things against you in that environment to longevity. So, anywho.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just amazed by some of these people. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's another thing. It's sort of like, are these people, are they born like this or are they made? I don't know.
I don't know. And that's what I ponder all the time, which is it nature versus nurture? And again, I think we're all born good. I just think that some people, I think what happens in your childhood, who your parents are and all of that, really, some people go in one direction and some people go in another. And I think there's some people that would never go in either direction. Do you know? I mean, I think there are people out amongst us. There's a lot of narcissists in the world and there's a lot of sociopaths in the world. We don't really know this, but they are, and they're out there, but they function much more because of whatever reasons they're able to do, they're able to maintain.
Yeah, they're under the radar. And also too, I mean, if you talk about nature versus nurture, there's plenty of people who grow up in the same house as siblings with pretty much the same experience, especially if you're born close together and you kind of experience the same things, who turn out to be, I mean, the Unabomber, his brother was perfectly nice and turned him in when he found out what his brother was doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know Ted Kaczynski's life story, but I guess then I would have to look and see, like, at what point did these two brothers, but I think that the other part of it too is that idea of, right, people being in the exact same situation, but one person being able to see, okay, all of this stuff is happening for me versus the other person who's saying all of this is happening to me. And that to me person, that's that narcissist, that victim, that sociopath that feels like the world owes them something and I've met people like this. And I the minute I see it, I tend to like back away. But there's a lot of people where they really like getting away with things. And it's like small things like skipping out at work or, stealing from work or like things that will never be found or whatever. But there's a lot of people like that like to break whatever rule they can break. And they do it in these very like covert ways that you never know about. So those people, when I hear about those people, I don't want to have anything to do with them because I just feel like something bad's going to happen eventually. And I don't want to be part of it.
Oh, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm a tattletale. Like, if I find
Oh, no,
out
Brooke, you're going to get
someone
beat up.
if I find out someone's doing something and I think that it could possibly like come back to me, I'm like, I'll go tell on them because I don't want anyone to think that I have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, Brooke, wrap us up before you tattletale on someone else.
Yes. Before I tattletale on you, I'll think of something. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you'd like to support our podcast, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and also leave a 5-star rating and review. That helps other people find the podcast, helps us a lot. And we also have a Patreon if you're interested in more content. We are getting ready to record our bonus episode.
We're going to be talking
about the Olympics.
Walls
We've been talking about
fever.
the Olympics a lot. Yeah. Sorry, it's over. About Waltz fever, walls
fever. Yes.
I'm saying it wrong. And just whatever we feel like talking about. So if you're interested, go to patreon.com/psychlegalpop podcast.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.